The only reason she actually came back was because Randy asked her to. And that is when something absolutely horrific started to play out. I actually became aware of this case back in early December when I saw this TikTok posted by Brooke Preston. In the TikTok, Jordan was referring to a documentary that was recently put out by Hulu called Dead Asleep, and it's about her sister Brooke Preston's case. The Preston family was not involved in it and isn't comfortable with it. I think the main reason that they are upset is that this documentary really seems to be focused on Brooke's killer, and it's less about Brooke. So Brooke was born on September 1st, 1995 in Wyalusing, Pennsylvania.
Brooke growing up was a very happy child.
She was caring and loving. She loved life.
Brooke growing up was always the life of the party. She had a ton of friends.
She made family gatherings like no other. Just added so much spark to them.
In July of 2016, she was ready for a change and decided to move to West Palm Beach. And her sister Jordan had already been living down there, so she wanted to go down there mainly to be with her.
When it came down to it, we were there for each other.
Back home in Pennsylvania, they had a friend named Randy, and the three of them were actually really close, so much so that they decided to move in together. Randy was going through a hard time before he moved to Florida, and one of the main reasons for that was what happened with his father. His father, Randy Herman Sr., was actually the prime suspect in the murder of his girlfriend, but that wasn't the only stress in Randy Jr.'s life at the time. He was also having some trouble with the law himself. Randy had actually been working part-time as a corrections officer at the local county jail in Pennsylvania until he lost his job after being charged with drug use and possession in August of 2013. So while the three of them were living together, Brooke was still dating her boyfriend Brian, and they were getting more serious, so they decided that they wanted to live together. So that brings us to March 24th, 2017. Brooke had been living in New York with her boyfriend for 4 months at this point. Around this time, she decided to come back to Florida to visit and pack up the rest of her things that she wasn't able to move with her initially when she moved.
I picked her up before work, and then I brought her to the house. I had a flight out to Denver. So her and Randy and we went to dinner together because it was the last time the three of us were going to be together for a while. We went out to dinner and they brought me to the airport and dropped me off. We said our goodbyes, and that was the last time that I had seen both of them.
Brooke had her last full day in Florida on March 24th. So the two of them packed up a bag and a bottle of champagne and went down to the beach together for the last time. After the beach, they went back home and continued drinking for a little bit on their porch. So we got a little bit more information about what had actually happened that day from one of their friends named Kyle McGregor. Brooke texted Kyle and let him know that Randy was completely belligerent and really upsetting her. So Kyle actually went over there to check on her, and when he came in contact with Brooke, she was very upset about Randy's behavior. She said she didn't want to be around him that night. She wanted to leave the house and asked if she could come spend the night at Kyle's instead. And of course he agreed. And once they left the house to go over to his house, Brooke told him some incredibly disturbing information. It turns out that night, Randy got naked and hid inside her closet. And when she did find him in the closet, he held up a finger to his mouth and just said, shh. She told Kyle that she just honestly didn't feel safe being in the same house as Randy alone with the way that he was acting. So the next morning, March 25th, Randy wakes up incredibly hungover, as you can imagine. He claims he got out of bed, he walks to the kitchen to get a glass of water, and that's where he sees Brooke, who had come back to the house to finish packing up her things. Brooke returned back to the home around 8:35 a.m., and this is confirmed with neighbors' surveillance footage. And the only reason she actually came back was because Randy asked her to. And that is when something absolutely horrific started to play out. It was then in that home that Brooke was attacked by Randy. He actually used this hunting knife that was next to his bed and stabbed Brooke. Now, Randy claims that the last thing he remembers after he said goodbye to Brooke was standing over her body with the knife. When Randy attacked Brooke, he was wearing just his boxers, and that's really all he remembers is being there holding the knife over her body. So he got changed. He took Brooke's car and drove up to Haverhill Park and called 911. The Palm Beach Sheriff's Office was dispatched to the scene of the crime and Haverhill Park, where Randy was anxiously waiting. Randy was picked up by police just after 9 a.m. Randy also had a cut on his hand, so they brought in emergency services to deal with that. By 9:23 a.m., police had searched Brooke's car, which, as a reminder, Randy had taken Brooke's car to go call 911. And then Randy was brought in for an hour and 49 minutes of questioning, and they provided him with a change of clothes so that they could take the bloody ones that he was wearing into evidence. His hands were photographed and then cleaned afterwards. And when police arrived to their house on Sarrazin Drive, they found Brooke lying on the floor, covered in a quilted blanket. They also asked Randy about the night before. If they had been partying, if there had been an argument between the two of them. Randy said that they drank a little, but there was no fighting between the two of them. But we know from their friend Kyle and what Brooke told him that Randy had drank more than he said. So we know that Brooke got there around 8:35, and then Randy left the house in Brooke's car at 8:57. And this is all according to neighbors' surveillance footage. So that means there was only 22 minutes between Brooke arriving at home and this incident occurring and Randy leaving. And then at one point in the interrogation, the officer just straight up asks Randy if he thinks he killed her, which it's pretty obvious to the officer at this point that it was Randy. And it's really hard to hear, unfortunately, but Randy does say that he was the only person home, so it must have been him. And unfortunately, this is really all we learn from Randy's initial interrogation. It actually took more than 2 years after Brooke's death for the trial to take place. But on Tuesday, April 30th, 2019, Randy finally sat before the judge in court and faced a first-degree murder charge for the death of Brooke Preston. Now, despite his straight-up confession on the 911 call, Randy did not plead guilty. Instead, Randy pleads not guilty by reason of insanity. So even though Randy straight up admitted to Brooke, he now was saying that he was asleep for all of it. He was actually sleepwalking, according to his defense team. And because of this, the defense made the argument that he should not be sentenced to life in prison, or maybe shouldn't be sentenced at all. There was no question that Randy was the one who stabbed Brooke. So saying that he had no idea what was going on and he was innocently sleepwalking was really the only defense that they could use. So the prosecuting attorneys obviously argued that Randy Herman Jr. could not have been sleepwalking while he viciously attacked and killed Brooke Preston. And they argued that he deliberately killed Brooke. So for 9 days, the prosecution and defense made their arguments and brought in experts to help back up their side. Randy did care for Brooke. He did call 911 and confessed that he was the one to kill her. He claimed to have no memory of what happened. He also clearly didn't try to clean up the crime scene, and we know that he claims to have been a sleepwalker as a kid, and this is backed up by his family. The defense also relied heavily on their claim that there was no motive for Randy to kill Brooke. Having no motive was something that the defense went back to over and over again throughout the trial. And surprisingly, Randy actually did testify in his own trial, which isn't very common, but it does happen, obviously.
So the killer testified on his own behalf and explained that he remembered Brooke coming back to the house and coming into his room, talking to her, and he remembers her walking out of his room. And then he said after that, he doesn't remember anything until he was standing over top of her in the hallway with the knife in his hand.
But the prosecution brought in a forensic psychiatrist who was able to poke a lot of holes in their defense. Now, Brooke's sister Jordan was subpoenaed to testify for the defense. And this is something that was definitely not portrayed correctly in the documentary Dead Asleep. It made it seem like Jordan was voluntarily doing this, and she certainly was not.
I was subpoenaed to speak at the trial, so I did.
Jordan was brought up on the stand, and she testified that in the 6 months that she lived with him, she never heard of or saw him sleepwalking one time. She never knew that this was something that he did.
He ruined our family. He ruined one of the best parts of our lives, and there's nothing he can do to change that now.
Now, the timeline is obviously a huge part of this case, like many cases, and it was a huge part of the trial, especially because there was only 22 minutes where all of this would have happened. Revisiting the timeline was a huge strategy for the prosecution to prove that it just would have been impossible for Randy to have been asleep during this. So in that 22 minutes, we know that the first couple of minutes were spent in Randy's bedroom. In his bedroom, Brooke and Randy chat for a few minutes, and at 8:49 a.m., which is just 14 minutes after Brooke had arrived home, a witness, a man who's just walking by the house, claims to have heard screaming. If we guesstimate that they chatted for about 5 to 6 minutes to say their goodbyes for Brooke to get the shirt, that leaves only 5 minutes after Brooke had left Randy's room for Randy to have fallen back into such a deep sleep that he ends up sleepwalking and kills her. So after 9 days of all of this back and forth, it was time for the jury to make up their minds. And it took the jury only 5 hours to come back with their verdict. And in the end, the jury found Randy Herman Jr. guilty of the first-degree murder of Brooke Preston. And shortly after, Randy was sentenced to life in prison.
So the verdict ended up being read, and of course it was guilty of first-degree premeditated murder, and I just remember getting complete chills.
And obviously the Preston family was happy with this verdict, happy that Randy was found guilty, but their sadness and anger towards Randy remained. And it only got worse when Randy decided to appeal his conviction in April of 2021. Basically, Randy and his team wanted his out-of-court statements to be entered in as evidence because they showed remorse. Remorse is one of the key elements that they need in order to make their defense make sense. And they want this because one of the criteria that was listed by the expert that was brought in on sleepwalking is remorse felt by the sleepwalker to the victim. As of now, Randy is still set to face life in prison. Obviously, there is nothing that can be said or done to bring Brooke back, and the pain that this family feels every single day is just insurmountable. Her friends and family who have joined me in today's video, which to all of them, thank you so much. It really does help people understand more when it's coming from the victim's family. The Preston family and I really hope that everyone watching this video has the chance to get to know what a kind, fun, and good-spirited person that Brooke was, and that she did not deserve what happened to her.
I hope that after watching this and hearing what my family has to say, that everyone can see like how amazing and fun and crazy, awesome, how great my sister was.
I can't change the fact that Hulu released this documentary. I can't change the fact that Brooke's family wasn't involved with it at all. They made the decision not to partake in the documentary because they didn't want to relive the trauma.
It was making us relive something that was the worst things in our lives.
So I hope that today I was really able to give them a platform to really share their side of things. The Preston family does have a petition to get that documentary taken down.
It's got about 100,000 signatures on it right now. We're hoping to get the documentary removed from Hulu.
I just want to say before I go that I think Jordan is such an incredible human. I think she's very brave taking on a huge company like Hulu and standing up for her sister. She would be so proud. And again, I want to thank all of Brooke's family and friends who participated in today's video. I know it's not easy to get on camera and talk about the worst thing that's ever happened to you. I can't imagine the pain that you guys feel every day. And I want to thank all of you for watching till the end and giving the Prestons an opportunity to tell their side of the story. And until next time, stay safe out there.